Hi, welcome to the November edition of our CCA newsletter. My name is Kathy, and today we have our guest, Dave Cannon. Dave, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Kathy. My
Hi.
name is Dave Cannon. I am a correction officer for the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections. I work at Belmont Correctional Institution, which is in St. Clairsville, Ohio. And for those of you that don't know where St. Clairsville, Ohio is, we're about 2 hours east of Columbus. Unlike most of your guests, I'm not a chess master, unfortunately. I'm mediocre on my best day, but chess has profoundly changed and affected my life. So I tell my story whenever I can. As far as my personal life goes, as you can tell from the background, I'm a reader. I enjoy classic literature. I like to write, and I work out. And that's pretty much my life in a nutshell.
I remember too, you have a lot of typewriters. Is that still true?
Yeah, that's very true. I keep telling my wife that I'm not a typewriter collector, and every time we end up in an antique shop someplace, I end up coming out with another typewriter. So I may be a typewriter collector at this point.
All right. How many do you have, if you don't mind me asking? Or you could make up a number or
I
to
think I'm gonna make up a number. I should be around 13 to 15.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
they
great.
once you get a hold of one, you just got to have more, And then
That's
there's
awesome.
always one thing that makes this one special. There's a reason, honey, that I want to
Yeah.
spend $100 on this typewriter that I don't
Right, right.
need. Exactly.
But there is something different, about like typing or like receiving a typewritten letter, like there's
Have I sent you a typewritten letter?
you did, yeah, I
Oh,
think
yes, very
last
good.
year. Yeah. It was
Um,
really long too. I was very impressed. Like, wow.
it's a very tactile, unlike the keyboards on computers and stuff, you don't really feel the words being formed. Um, I think one of the things
Yeah.
I pointed out was how slow it is for me to type or write a letter, and how I have to really kind of think before I put the words on paper. And then I think I closed that out by saying, but wouldn't it be a better world if we all thought before we spoke, and we spoke a little
Yeah.
slower? So yeah, I'm a huge typewriter advocate.
Yeah. Well, that also reminds me too of like, chess and like thinking, connecting that to chess and taking your time and thinking before you move. And so I actually wanted to ask too. So you have started and run the Bishops of Belmont Chess Club,
Yes,
and I
ma'am.
was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that and how it got started, and what that entails.
So we started the Bishops of Belmont back in 2014. Um, and the way it started, the Bishops of Belmont is unique in that it is a prison chess club. It's done inside of a prison. All of our members are uh, adult offenders, level 1 and level 2, which means they are not bad but not good either. I mean, think about getting in a car drunk, and getting pulled over for like the 9th time or something like that. But we have guys who've also done their share of robbery, a lot of drug dealers and stuff in our club. So the way the club actually got started is, and I'm going to try to shorten this story up because I know we only got about 30 minutes, but at a very young age, I was introduced to martial arts, about 12 or 13. And when I say introduced, I was sort of dragged into the studio kicking and screaming the dojo. And in the dojo, I met a gentleman. His name was Miles Lampkin. And Miles Lampkin was the instructor, the sensei. And one of my first lessons in judo was he sent me over to the corner of this mat and he said, do 900 jumping jacks. So I went over and I'm doing 900 jumping jacks. The whole time I'm doing my 900 jumping jacks, I'm looking over here to my right and I'm watching him do all this martial arts stuff with these guys. I really wanted to be in there. I really wanted to be scrapping and showing these guys how tough I was and everything. But he told me to do 900 jumping jacks. So I'm starting to do my 900 jumping jacks. Now Sensei Lampkin was over here teaching a class. I was absolutely certain that if I did 899 jumping jacks, Sensei Lampkin wouldn't notice. However, to my left, there was a stage, a little raised area in this little store. It was actually a storefront. And on that stage were several elderly gentlemen. They were all up there playing chess, but there was one in particular. That gentleman was watching me, and he had the meanest, the sternest eyes I'd ever seen. And he's up there playing a game of chess, but I absolutely knew that if I did 899 jumping jacks, he would know. If I did 901 jumping jacks, he would know. So I did my 900 jumping jacks. At the end of my training that day, there was two things I knew. Number one was I wanted to come back. I wanted to be in that environment for a long time. Now, at this point, I should say that I was already at the age of 12. This was inner city Akron. I was already selling drugs. I was already smoking pot. I'd already experimented with some other stuff. I was heading down a wrong road. I apologize if I get emotional when I tell this story, but it is the genesis of the Bishops of Belmont. So the second thing that I knew was that I didn't want no trouble with that old man up on the stage. I would rather scrap with that martial arts instructor, or that judo instructor, than have any trouble with that old man on that stage. About 2 months after I've been there, and I've been going pretty regular, and the way this place worked was it was only $10 a month. It was pretty much set up for kids like me. I mean, brought in off the streets and everything. So it was $10 a month. About 2 months into my experience, that old man's calling me over to him. Hey, boy. Hey, boy. And by the way, everybody called me boy there. I don't think anybody actually knew my name. I was just boy. So I go over. I'm thinking I'm in trouble. I'm thinking the worst. He's going to throw me out of the club, because at that time I was always in trouble. If an adult was talking to me, it was either mom or I was in trouble. So he calls me over. He says, "Why are you paying me with nickels and dimes?" Well, sir, it's all I got. He says, "Are you paying me with your lunch money, boy?" And I said, "Well, yeah, yes, sir." He asked me who my dad was. At that time, I didn't have a father, and I told him that. At this point, he gets a little more sympathetic. He says, "Well, who's your mom?" I tell him who my mom is. He says, "Oh, that's that chick that works down there at the donut shop. Everybody knows the donut shop." So he offers me a job. He says, "I'll tell you what, you come in, scrub my mats every night after we're done. You go down into the basement, which is actually a locker room." When I say a locker room, I use that term very loosely. It was more like a medieval dungeon. Every Saturday, and we'll just call it even. You can come in and work out anytime you want. I'm like, deal. So I'm down on a Saturday cleaning out this dungeon. I come back up. I'm covered in nasty stuff. And he, Mr. Shy, he is over there playing chess by himself on a board. And he asked me, he says, "Hey, boy, do you play chess?" And from somewhere, and I don't remember where, somebody had taught me how to move the pieces. And I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Come up here and give me a game." So I go up on the stage, which I consider a great honor, and I play chess. And this was the first time that I learned that just because you know how the pieces move doesn't mean you know chess. So over the next couple of years, Miles Lampkin, Sensei Lampkin, was in charge of my physical training and my discipline. And Mr. Shy would play chess with me and teach me about the things that I needed to know to be a man. He would teach me about courage. He would teach me about honor, and he would teach me about integrity. I didn't know that. I thought he was just trying to get my mind off the game. It didn't matter whether my mind was on that game or not, because he was like millions of miles away from me in skill. I slowly move away from the dojo. I end up going into the Marine Corps. When I get into the Marine Corps, I'm with a lot of different people from a lot of different worlds. A couple of them play chess. I play chess. So we start playing chess. I start playing chess with the Marines. When I get overseas, I find the chessboard is this wonderful, wonderful In Naples, Italy, I played chess with a Muslim beggar who told me he was a prince. In Cordoba, Spain, I played chess with a prince I had known as the Muslim beggar. I played chess with a retired fisherman in Greece, with a shopkeeper in Istanbul. I played chess with Jewish clerics in Israel. I in Beirut, Lebanon. Some of the guys that I was playing chess with during the day, I was absolutely certain were the same guys trying to kill me at night. One of my most memorable games was in Mombasa, Kenya. There was a hashish dealer by the side of the road. We'd been out running, doing a PT, physical training, and I noticed him. And he had long dreadlocks. His fingernails were long. He was unbathed. He had little blocks of hashish there by the side of the road, and he was selling them. But he also had an old chessboard. And when I say old, I mean probably before chess was actually invented. So that night, I came back out. I came off base, and I asked him to play me a game. He did play me a game. I enjoyed it greatly. He enjoyed it greatly. And I love telling this story because it's the only time I get to use this word, Kathy. He laughed maniacally every time he took one of my pieces. It was so it was very entertaining.
Yes.
No matter where I was, no matter what our religions were, no matter most of the time I couldn't speak their same language. We didn't have the same gods, but as long as I had a chessboard in between us, we were friends. There was this thing that we shared, and I never walked away from a chessboard knowing an enemy. I only walked away knowing friends. I get out of the Marine Corps, and I come back home. There's not much call for chess when you get, out here in the real world, unless you get in like with our little geeky crowd here that we got. So I come home, I get involved in the prison system. I become a correction officer. And in the prison system, there's a huge chess kind of a family kind of a thing. I would go back into the dorms and I would watch these chess games and stuff.
Yeah. So
in 2014, I'd been involved in corrections. I was hired in corrections in 1995. In 2014, I have this porter, a guy who cleans up for me. His name was Rembert. And Rembert was a great chess player. He was one of the best in the institution. And he asked me if I played chess. And I said, yeah. And he says, well, I always see you back there playing chess or watching us play chess.
Yeah.
So he says, well, how'd you learn to play chess? And I told him the story that I just told you. And he says, Mr. Cannon, they got that Google thing now. You can go on Google. You can find anybody you want. And like I said, I'm not real comfortable with technology, but my friend was right. We got that Google thing now. So that night I went home and I got on Google. And I find this picture of my old friend, Mr. Shy. Naturally, I click on it. It's the picture of an obituary. He had passed away almost a year to the day when I looked him up. There was so much that I didn't know about him. Mr. Shy was a doctor. He had a PhD in theology. He was a reverend priest. He had studied judo under a Japanese master for 10, 12 hours a day.
Wow.
He brought that judo back here to the United States, where he founded Kino's, which was his school. He is in the World Martial Arts Hall of Fame as a 10th degree Soki and a pioneer in martial arts. He had brought judo back here. And basically, he founded a group of kids, and I think I was probably one of the first of these kids, called the I Am organization. So when my mother passed away, I didn't cry. I didn't shed a tear. When I found out Mr. Shy had passed away, and I hadn't had the opportunity to thank him, and it was just
Mm,
that moment that I didn't realize what he had given me, the
yeah.
gift he had given me. That night in the shower, I cried for 45 minutes.
Mm,
All I can hear is his voice in my ear saying, I gave this to you, boy. Now give it back.
wow.
The next day, I went in and talked to our warden and started the Bishops of Belmont. And we've been working at it ever since.
Thank you for sharing your story. I'm getting all teary-eyed
I
too.
hope that
That's so
I tried to cut it down. I didn't want it to run too
ah,
long.
man.
I always get
Oh,
emotional
man.
on that story.
Yeah. Wow. So that's, I think that's so beautiful, like realizing what an impact that, this had, not just like the chess, the game, but also the relationships,
Mhm.
and having something to look forward to in your life, and then bringing that to Belmont. And then, keeping up with it. Cause I know I've talked to you about like some stories with some of the inmates. And you also started doing competition, like tournaments with them
I
too.
did.
Yeah. And I think that's how, I'm not sure if that's where I first met you, or cause I've known you for a minute now,
We've known
but
each other for a while, but
yeah.
I think actually maybe it was in 2017. Well, I owe a big thanks to the Ohio Chess Association,
Hmm.
and because I we've been doing the chess club for about 2 years. It was 2016 or so,
Hmm.
and I was doing the best I could, but I don't know anything about running a chess club. I knew there were tournaments and stuff like that. I'd never actually been in a tournament. Um, and I really wanted to get my guys involved in some of this stuff. I really wanted to. So I called the Ohio Chess Association, and I can't remember the gentleman's name who ran it at the time, but I got a hold of him. And he says, you know what? I know somebody that you need to talk to. I'm going to hook you up
Hmm.
with. So I'm at work one night. I pick up the phone, and it's Grant Neely. And
Hmm.
I know anybody in the state of Ohio who's played in a tournament probably knows Grant Neely. He is a tournament director. And he calls me up and he says, hey, I hear you got a prison chess club out there. And I'm like, yeah, we do. So we start talking. And he hooks me up with Tom Britt. Tom Britt
Hmm.
is a national master, as we all know.
Hmm.
So Grant says, well, why don't we do a tournament? I'm like, that's a great idea. So in 2017, I believe it was October 2017, we did our first tournament. And I believe that's when you and I first met.
Hmm.
You came and you did that tournament. It was it wasn't a huge success in terms of people because I think there were only 7 of you or 8, maybe counting me. I think this might have been my second tournament that I ever played in,
Yeah.
and so there weren't many of us. I think there might have been a dozen or so inmates. As a matter of fact, it was only restricted to the camp. It was only restricted to the lower
Hmm.
echelon guys at that point. Um, and you came and we did the tournament, and there were 2 things that I thought made it a huge success. Um, Number one was giving the guys that I'd been working with for the past 2 years the opportunity to meet some of you folks and to be able to get the positive reinforcement from outside competitors. Um, you guys did a great job. Uh, it was for me a very fulfilling moment. It felt like the apex. I thought, man, it's never ever going to get any better than this. Um, and then Tom Britt came and did a simul, and I'm like, well, it's never ever going to get any better than this. So since 2016 or so, the club's been growing. I've taken advice from a lot of different people out there. The Ohio Chess Association's been instrumental in that growth. They've helped me tremendously. Uh, my goal is not to make better chess players. My goal is to create better people. I want to teach them the same things that Mr. Shy taught me.
Yeah.
I want to teach them about courage, and I want to teach them about honor, and I want to teach them about always taking up for the underdog. Um, I want them to be better people after they leave our institution than they ever were when they came. I want them to see the options they have in front of them.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Are there any personal anecdotes or stories about the impact that this has made with some of the inmates?
I have a lot of them, but there's
Yeah.
two that I can think of in particular. One was from last year during the tournament, and as you know, we invite the adult offenders. We have them invite family and friends to come in to support them in this, which is a huge positive factor for them as outside help.
Yeah.
So one of the, and I'm going to change his name here. I'm pretty sure you met him last year, and I think I may have even told you guys this story. But when we invite the families in, the families come in, and one of the first people that I met was a young man, and I'm going to call him Roush. And Roush came up to me and said, "Mr. Cannon, can I introduce you to my dad?" Certainly. I'm absolutely honored to be introduced to anybody's parents. So this kindly old gentleman comes up to me, he puts out his hand, he shakes my hand, and Roush tells me, says, "Mr. Cannon, my dad taught me how to play chess." And I'm like, "Really?" So, you know, we got chessboards all over the place. Nobody's using any of them right now. I says, "Roush, why don't you play your dad a game of chess?"
Yeah.
And I could see that his dad was a little hesitant. I thought maybe it was
Yeah.
because he's older and maybe he hadn't played chess. And Roush looked at his dad and said, "Do you want to?" And he's, "Yeah." So they sit down and they start playing chess. And our warden just happened to be standing there. Excuse me. And I said, "Dave, this would make a great shot." So he took a picture of it.
Yeah.
The families only stayed for the first round. We have a nice catered in lunch. By the way, you missed a very good one this year with cheeseburgers. Anyways,
Delicious.
we have a nice catered lunch, and the players have lunch with their families and have lunch with you guys, and there's little games going off on the side and everything. And I'd looked over and I'd seen Roush and his father, and I think it was maybe his mother or his stepmother or something. They were sitting there and they were laughing and joking and stuff and eating. So he wasn't really involved with too many other people. After lunch, all of the guests, the family members and the friends are all asked to leave, and then we get back to the chess tournament. So as everybody's leaving, I look up and I see Roush, and he's standing in the back of the Skittles room where we had lunch at, and crying. An inmate crying in prison is not good, never good. It's a sign of weakness, and everybody, it's just not good. So I walk over to Roush and I'm like, "Roush, you got to get yourself together, man. Just get yourself together." He looks at me and he says, "That's the first time my dad's talked to me since I've been in here. He won't accept any of my phone calls. He has never written me. I've written him letters." And all of a sudden he grabs hold of me and he hugs me. And I'm a CO, so I'm trained. I don't do that with inmates, but there was nothing I could do here. And he's literally crying on my shoulder.
Wow.
And he says, "Mr. Cannon, he forgave me."
Oh, wow.
That was, and with every single one of these tournaments, I have stories like that.
Yeah.
The adult offenders who are affected by it in such a positive way. And in this particular one, and you were part of that, Kathy, we were able to bring a family back together. Now, I've lost track of Mr. Roush. He got out about 2 months after the tournament. I talked to him a little bit before that. He told me that he was going to get out, take care of his dad. And I haven't heard anything back from the young man since then. It's been a year. I always give, when the adult offenders leave, I always give them my chess.com handle. So And I play a lot of them on chess.com. I got about 20 games going right now.
Yeah.
But they're all beating my brains in because I can't track one game in front of me, let alone 20 games straight.
Fair.
So they're all happy about that. The other story that just happened this last tournament that was just absolutely so cool is, I don't know if you remember, I don't know if you played him last year, but last year there was an adult offender named John Nelson. He's given me his permission to use his name. He was doing time, and I can't remember exactly what he was doing time for, but he was a loyal member of the Bishops of Belmont Chess Club. Came up every meeting, played all the books. When the tournament came up, he was first in line. He came, played you guys, had a really, really good game. As a matter of fact, you're going to find a picture in those pictures that I sent you.
Yeah.
Of me and John Nelson playing chess. John Nelson came back to the tournament this year as a free man. He drove all the way from North Carolina to Ohio to show support for our club. And he said some beautiful, wonderful things. That was probably, and you know what? I sit here and I think it can't get any better than that. But you know what? Next year, come back, another great support. So that was a beautiful moment.
That is really beautiful. I feel like Dr. Shai, like looking down, will be so proud, of what you've done for, the community and for these inmates. Because like you said, with these are just two stories of, I'm sure you have dozens of them of what this has meant. So yeah.
Well, I'm not certain, but if there is a heaven and Mr. Shai's waiting up there for me, I hope he's got a chessboard, because I'm going to get him this time.
That's really funny. Good. So you just hosted your third Belmont breakout. I wanted to ask you, like, what are some things you learned from the first time around to the one you just held? Because you had quite a decent turnout in this last one. Were there any setbacks from before that you've learned, or like lessons that you learned to make the next one even better, or with your club as well?
I've learned quite a bit. From 2017 to 2021, we didn't have any of these tournaments. We did a lot of simuls with Tom Britt. I had a lot of guests and stuff come in. But the tournaments are a huge amount of work. I'm sure Grant Neely will attest to the fact that, and because I know you're a tournament director, that putting a tournament together like this, being the go-between between two massive organizations, the United States Chess Federation on one side and the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction on the other side, and trying to get them all together to come in. I mean, it literally takes 3 months out of my life to get that ready, to put that together. So after 2017, I thought, no more. It's never happening again. Exactly. Right. Never say never, right?
Yeah.
So I keep 2020 comes around, and I want to do it. I have the feeling again. So we're going to 2020, and you were at 2021, 2020, 2022.
Yeah,
2022. That was the first one we did. We started it back up. I have a very good warden who supports this program wholeheartedly. He bends over. He gives me anything back. He bends over backwards, gives me anything I need for this. All I have to do is he signs the papers, and I move on. I put my days off in there. He signs them, and I move on. So, anyways, I've got a lot of good support. I thought it was the right time. We reintroduced it.
Yeah.
Again, for that, I'm worried sick about, and you know what? I'm worried sick. Nobody's going to show up for it. I'm going to be standing out. Me and Grant Neely are going to be standing out front waiting for it. Nobody's going to show up for it. Then I'm going to have 21 inmates that I'm going to have to, 21 inmates I'm going to have to play. I've learned something.
Mm.
Don't worry about it. Don't sweat the
Mhm.
small stuff. Put it together the best you can. You know what? How'd Kevin Costner say it? Build it and they will come. Um, I couldn't have been more. I couldn't have been happier with this last turnout. We
Yeah.
had um, we had 19 outside participants, and I just happened to have 21 incarcerated participants,
Mhm.
which made for perfect number. And we just had a
Mhm.
really great time. So,
Yeah.
um, but if I've learned one thing from this, it's not to
Yeah.
sweat. Just put it together the best you can, and let the universe fix it from there. So
Yeah. Awesome.
so next year I can see I'm probably going to have to get 30 inmates in here. So
Yeah.
yeah. So
Great.
yeah,
Yeah, and I definitely hope to join again next year.
I
So
hope so. We're going to have to
it's
avoid
just a very, yeah.
Grant.
I was
Grant
doing,
does a very good job of setting that stuff
yeah,
up when nobody's having anything. But I'm not
yeah,
even sure if we even thought about your kids' stuff.
yeah.
So I know
But
we miss
next year,
you and
definitely I'll
Alan,
put on
but
my calendar and I'll say like, sorry, can't do
can't.
any of the
Yeah.
other ones.
So
Cool. Nice.
um, did
Yeah.
you want to ask me about setbacks?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. If there are any specific setbacks you,
I have had setbacks, and
yeah.
if people, I am in a community where everybody asks me why I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I just gave you the answer why I'm doing it. But in
Mm-hmm.
my community, I'm supposed to be hard. I'm supposed to be bad. I'm supposed to not like the guys that I am in charge of.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I have a failure, um, everybody is quick to point that out. Uh,
Mm.
I had, and a lot of times it hurts. I had a gentleman who's one of the founding members, been with the club, I don't know, 7, 8 years. Finally
Mm.
got out, and a few months after he had gotten out, he he killed a shopkeeper trying to
Mm.
steal money for drugs, and that
Mhm.
sort of stuff hurts. And you have those
Uh,
setbacks.
yeah.
Last year, after last year's tournament, we had an issue with uh, one of our adult offenders. Um, I have setbacks almost weekly in this
Mm.
club.
Mhm.
But in the end, I always try to remember, I think of the 11 or 12 guys that founded the club. And
Mhm.
the only one that I've heard back in the system was this gentleman who got out and was trying to steal for money.
Yeah.
Anyways, um, when I have these setbacks, when I am looking at my old club members and I find one of them's back in the system, uh, when I have a failure and all of my peers want to remind me that I have a setback, I always bring myself back to one thing. I focus myself on the board in front of me and the young man sitting across from me. And I
Mhm.
remember it's not about my setbacks, it's about him. It's about
Mm.
one young man sitting across from me.
Mhm.
And if I can bring something good to him, then I have succeeded. John Nelson is a perfect example.
Yeah.
No matter what else, this club can go up in flames right now. As long as John Nelson
Yeah.
continues to be productive out there, continues to be with his wife, continues
Yeah.
to raise his children, then this
Yeah.
club has certainly done its job.
That reminds me when I was first teaching and had some like rough few years when I first started, a veteran teacher came to me and said, if you've made a difference in like one student's life, then like the whole year has been worth it.
Yeah,
And so like when you're having like those worst days, just thinking, and it's like every single year, I can think of like, okay, and like, it's just like the small things, that the students will say to you, be like, thank you so much for being like such a good teacher, or thank you so much for supporting me in this, and it's like, this has made like the whole year, no matter what else happens, like this has made it worth it.
you know, I also want to remind you, Kathy. Um,
Yeah.
First of all, I think there's a special place in heaven for teachers. I really do. You know what? Mr. Shy did all of this stuff for me. Um,
Mhm.
I didn't realize it. When I left for the Marine Corps, he was one of the only guys who said goodbye to me. And when he came up and he said goodbye to me, he says, "You know what? I think you're going to be all right, young man." And I can remember walking away from that thinking, he didn't call me boy. He called me young man. So, but
Yeah.
anyway, but anyways, I never told him thank you. I never realized how much he meant to me until, years after the fact.
Yeah.
So I just want you to know that there are probably kids your influence. If you had been one of my teachers, you'd look like you were 90 years old right now with gray hair. And, but there are students that you're helping that don't realize
Yeah.
that, and in 20 years, they're
Mhm.
going to look back and say, hey, Mrs. really she was on it. She helped me out a lot.
Oh,
So you're doing a great job.
okay. Oh, thanks, Dave. Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I have one more question for you, and that is, what aspect of the Bishops of Belmont is the most meaningful, important, or significant to you? That makes you, and you've talked a lot about, what has been, important to you, but is there anything else you want to share with us?
Um, there's two things, actually. When inmates and corrections officers don't shake hands,
Mhm.
we are adversarial in a very, testosterone laden um, world. When inmates become comfortable enough with me um, to shake my hand, to confide in me, um, when they feel comfortable enough to introduce me to their parents, when they feel comfortable enough with me to bring up a young man who's maybe just on his first number and is
Mhm.
angry and thinks the whole world's out to get him, and they bring me that young man, and um, they put his future in my hands. I think it's the greatest honor they can pay me. I don't know.
Mhm.
Last year, one of my favorites was Rico Hooks, and I don't know if I'm even allowed to say his name. He played in the tournament last year. He was that way. He was brought up by um, another guy, and he wanted. The older gentleman said, this is Rico. He thinks he's a chess player. Can you help him out?"
Mhm.
Rico was an angry young man when he came to me. When he
Mhm.
got to you guys, he smiled a lot. He had a future, and I know he's out there. I keep in touch with him on chess.com. I know that he has his struggles,
Mhm.
but he's still in the fight, and I'll bet on
Mhm.
that kid every time.
Yeah.
Those are the most impactful on me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I've earned an inmate's trust.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. What you're doing is inspirational. You're an inspiration. And I think that, like, one of the things that I really love about this is that chess is much more than just a game. It's about the relationships you build with each other. And, like, it really can change somebody's life. So,
look at how many friends I've developed in the chess community since we've started getting together with it. People
yeah.
who are constantly writing me, and it's just our community is. And it's funny to see two guys sit down at a table and they get their game face on and they're all
Yeah.
mean, and and it's like and all of a sudden. And it's like, ooh, those two guys hate each other. And then, like 5 minutes later, you find them over a board, play, yeah, that was a good move. That
Yeah.
was a good move. So we have like our own bonding kind of a thing we do.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, but we never turn down a game from a friend. So,
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for this interview. And we hope the viewers also have appreciated it. All right.
thank you very much,
Thank
Kat.
you.